during the House Select Committee hearings on January 6th, we learned that contrary to what we previously thought, Donald Trump did in fact want to make his way to the nation's capital as rioters were basically breaking into the Capitol and threatening his vice president with hanging him, along with other acts of violence. Now, Trump was stopped from doing that, mostly because his security detail, along with White House lawyers, put a stop to it. But before we get to how he reacted to it, let's set the stage. Let's set the scene a little bit, okay? Now, Donald Trump gives this rally speech on January 6th prior to the riots taking place. And at some point he says that he's going to march to the nation's capital with these rioters, right? And at that point, you have Kevin McCarthy, Representative Kevin McCarthy, call Cassidy Hutchinson, who is the aide to White House Chief of Staff Mark Meadows at the time. And he's furious about what he heard. So let's hear from Hutchinson over how that conversation went down.
Tell us about the call that day with Leader McCarthy during the president's speech on the ellipse.
I was still in the tent behind the stage, and when you're behind the stage, you can't really hear what's going on in front of you. So when Mr. McCarthy called me with this information, I answered the call and he sounded rushed, but also frustrated and angry at me. And I was confused because I didn't know what the president had just said. He then explained, the president just said he's marching to the Capitol. You told me this whole week you aren't coming up here. Why would you lie to me? I said, I'm not lying. I wasn't lying to you, sir. We're not going to the Capitol. And he said, well, he just said it on stage, Cassidy, figure it out. Don't come up here.
And Hutchinson was asked, well, what was Trump planning to do if he, made his way to the Capitol building? What was his plan? And there were a number of different ideas floated by Trump, including the idea of entering the House chamber. Like, what was he gonna do? But based on her testimony, there's no question about it. Trump absolutely wanted to go to the Capitol with the rioters. And when he was blocked from doing so, he was enraged. And you're about to hear how he reacted in detail in the next clip.
Tony described him as being irate. The president said something to the effect of, I'm the effing president, take me up to the Capitol now. To which Bobby responded, sir, we have to go back to the West Wing. The president reached up towards the front of the vehicle to grab at the steering wheel. Mr. Engel grabbed his arm, said, sir, you need to take your hand off the steering wheel. We're going back to the West Wing. We're not going to the Capitol. Mr. Trump then used his free hand to lunge towards Bobby Engel. And when Mr. Renato had recounted this story to me, he had motioned towards his clavicles.
So either assault or attempted assault in response to just the refusal to drive Donald Trump to the Capitol building. Refusal to do it. And I mean, they obviously did the right thing, but what's incredible about this testimony is that, look, we've heard about Trump act like a child. We've heard about him and his temper tantrums, certainly on social media, which, by the way, he's melting down as we speak on Truth Social, attacking Hutchinson for her handwriting. That's what he's been reduced to because he's a complete and utter child and loser. But Cenk, he got physical with the driver there who refused to take orders from Trump in driving him to the Capitol building.
Yeah, so I think the more relevant part of her testimony was proving that Trump knew there was violence at the Capitol and aided and abetted that violence. But this part of the testimony catches the eye better. Everybody can understand attacking your own driver and trying to grab the wheel and trying to choke basically an employee. And everybody gets that that's nuts, totally unhinged. And so then of course the next questions are, how does that affect things? Legally, I don't think you're gonna get him on a charge of attacking the Secret Service employees. I'd be very surprised by that. Politically, I think his base will like this. I'm not 1% exaggerating or joking. That means he actually wanted to go to the Capitol, which some people were blaming him for not going to the Capitol, right? To join the protesters. They're gonna be like, look, he really, really did wanna go, right? Number two, they'll call the Secret Service deep state for keeping him away from the Capitol. And number three, they'll like that he committed violence against them. So politically, I don't think it's gonna hurt him at all.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. So that part of the testimony was damning for people like us who don't think the president of the United States or anyone should have the ability to assault someone who, it quite honestly is protecting them from doing something incredibly stupid. And that's what the driver and his head of Secret Service, the head of his Secret Service detail were doing there. They were trying to stop a bad situation from getting even worse. But what we also learned, honestly, is again, like Trump's rage goes further than just having these meltdowns on social media. He has no problem with getting physical. He has no problem with being absolutely horrible toward people around him, including individuals tasked with, keeping areas of the White House clean. And I thought that this part of Hutchinson's testimony, where she discloses how Trump reacted to his former Attorney General, William Barr, telling the Associated Press that there was no evidence of widespread voter fraud, was just illustrative of who he really is behind the scenes. Again, it goes way further than just having these temper tantrums on social media. Let's just watch how Trump reacted to news of William Barr essentially telling the Associated Press, no, there's no evidence of widespread voter fraud.
I left the office and went down to the dining room, and I noticed that the door was propped open and the valet was inside the dining room changing the tablecloth off of the dining room table. He motioned for me to come in and then pointed towards the front of the room near the fireplace mantle and the TV, where I first noticed there was ketchup dripping down the wall and there's a shattered porcelain plate on the floor. The valet had articulated that the president was extremely angry at the Attorney General's AP interview and had thrown his lunch against the wall.
So Cenk, earlier in the show, you had referenced just how conservative Cassidy Hutchinson is. I mean, she was the aide for former White House Chief of Staff Mark Meadows, after all. Also did work for Ted Cruz and all sorts of unsavory individuals. And I think that clip really, helped you double down on that point, because instead of saying ketchup, she says catch-up. So already, she's not one of us, but her testimony was compelling.
Yeah, so look, again, if you don't know that Trump is unhinged, you're trying super hard not to know it. And there's no amount of evidence that we can give you that'll change your mind. And he, in this case, remember how he famously said, I could shoot someone on Fifth Avenue and get away with it? Well, I mean, he was in favor of his vice president being murdered. She said in the testimony, that he knew it and didn't want to stop it. So ketchup against the wall. I mean, again, I think his base will like that he threw the plate. They like that he attacks his subordinates physically. Anything where he's what we look at as insane and unhinged and irresponsible and assault and all of those things, you have to look at it from their perspective. The right wingers like all of that. I don't think there's any part of that portion of the testimony that they will object to. I'm genuinely curious. I want to play that video one more time of her explaining, Trump's reaction to Pence. Whether, if the right wingers ever believe anything, if they believe that, are they okay? Forget the catch-up, forget attacking the Secret Service. Are they okay with political murder? And I genuinely don't know the answer to that. I think a lot of Republicans might say, yeah, I'm okay with it. So in the last video, Pat that she's referring to is Pat Cipollone, who is the White House counsel. So the White House counsel of Mark Meadows are talking about. I want to play that one more time.
I remember Pat saying something to the effect of, Mark, we need to do something more. They're literally calling for the vice president to be effing hung. And Mark had responded something to the effect of, you heard him, Pat, he thinks Mike deserves it, he doesn't think they're doing anything wrong.
He doesn't think that they're doing anything wrong in trying to murder the vice president. So right-wingers, Republicans, conservatives, MAGA, are you guys okay with that? I don't know. I think you might be.